Hey, this is Al, and I'm in Philadelphia at the Kelly Writers House. I'm really excited about this morning's webcast. We have a couple people missing. I think Amber Rose is in class, Max is at work, Allie is at work, Emily Harnett is teaching. Yes, she's teaching, lucky students. Dave is sleeping and or philosophizing. But we do have, joining us through the magic of the Hangouts, we do have Amaris is here. Good morning, Amaris.
Morning, Al.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. I'm good. I'm doing really well.
Good. And Molly is here from Los Angeles, putting Dave to shame, who's in the same time zone. But there's Molly. Hey, Moll.
Morning.
It was so much fun having you join us last week here. It's not the same, although Silver Lake looks like a good neighborhood this morning. Got some green out there. And Erica is joining us. Good morning, Erica. Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Great. Is that Gertrude Stein on the wall behind you?
Yep.
Hey, Gertrude's with us. We might ask Gertrude some questions. And at the table, it's the guys, but that's okay. We're all kind of buttoned down this morning. It's really good. I mean, Joe's the least buttoned down, but that's appropriate, I think. To my far right, but your far left, which is maybe more significant, we have Gabe this morning. Good morning, Gabe. And we have Davey. Davey, you're going to have to get closer to the mic, I think.
That seems true, yeah.
Unless you want to keep leaning forward. And we have from the Pioneer Valley of Western Massachusetts, our favorite. I mean, wow, what a great poet he is. And a TA in ModPo, and also a poet in ModPo Plus for week 2. We've never had this combo. Joe Massey. Hello, Joe.
Nice to be here, Al.
It's great. And yesterday, a few of us went into the studio with Joe, and we recorded 2 new ModPo Plus videos. And what were they? One of them was on Kit Robinson's poem, Leaves of Class, which is Whitmanian, among other things. And we're going to add that to ModPo Plus. And what was the other poem? A Depression-era William Carlos Williams poem called To a Poor Old Woman. So that was fun. It was really good to do. Okay, a couple of shout-outs and then some announcements, and then we're going to get started. My announcements are going to be, my shout-outs are going to be to Susan Mulder of Western Massachusetts and Borku of Turkey. Here are the announcements. This is the week we are writing, many of us are writing essays about Dickinson. The way to get to your essay assignment is to click on resources and then click on essay assignments, and you'll see all the info. Do not click on grades. Do not click on grades. We can't get rid of that. That's a Coursera non-opt link, but it'll confuse you. We're doing our essays in the forums. We're bypassing the whole complicated essay submission and peer review model. We're just doing a ModPo thing, which is we're putting them in the forum. So this week we're writing, and next week we're peer reviewing the first essay. All right. And also just to look forward to week 3. Next week we are starting modernism, the rise of modernism. We're starting through imagism, and we're using William Carlos Williams as a sort of instance. So there are 2 parts of week 3. The first part is an introduction to Imagist poems, and then we look at Williams. So that's week 3. All right. I want to emphasize meetups. In the subforum for discussion today, I saw Mandana reminding us of the New York meetup, which is on Saturday at the New York Public Library 53rd Street branch, Saturday at noon. That means this Saturday, okay? And there are a lot of other meetups happening. I want to emphasize TA office hours, but I imagine everybody will do that at some point, maybe during final words. This is a way that this is the main way, other than this live webcast, in which ModPo is not an inert, massive open online course, which I would say is a massive closed online course, which is what, Macaque? Something like that. I prefer MOOC, as ugly as that is, to Macaque. Down with macaques, up with MOOCs. Anyway, what am I saying? The TA office hours are in effect synchronous. They are in effect live. because if you refresh the Coursera discussion forums, you get kind of an instantaneous response. It's the closest thing we've come to a chat room that we're satisfied with. These are really chat spaces. Please, this is the way in which we are different. Come join us. We have amazing TAs, okay? And just a reminder, today you can interact with us by tweeting using the hashtag ModPoLive, and there's already some good morning from Kathy D, Shannon Ratliff in Texas. Hey, Shannon. Someone named Millennial Park. Who is that? It's a Millennial Pink. I like that. Hi, guys, says Millennial Pink. And Alana, who's out in California, says, happy ModPo Live morning. So that's really, really fun. So you can tweet to us. You can go to Facebook. There's a Facebook group for ModPo. And then there's, I'm going to refresh this, and I'm going to see, Firefox does not like me to refresh. There it is. I'm going to see the video stream. Can you imagine I use Firefox? I'm so old-fashioned. Chrome doesn't work well with me. I see the webcast, live webcast, that's repeating myself, the webcast feed that Zach has shared, and you can comment below that. You can go to the subforum. The way to do that is to go to the left menu, click on discussion forums, and then you'll find, under the forums, you'll find live webcast sessions. If you click that, you'll see September 20th live webcast. And of course, you can call by phone 215-573-9752. Okay, here are two shout outs, and the second shout out will lead us to a question for the TAs. So first, Berku from Turkey. He writes, I am a lit graduate and right now in the process of doing an MA in literature in Turkey. I wanted to say I used to hate, well, maybe not hate, but was certainly not interested in, close paren, poetry, until I discovered ModPo 2 years ago. This is the third time I'm taking the course. The previous two times I got only as far as week 5. Uh-oh. What is it about week 5? It's usually week 4 that kills people, which is Stein and the Baroness and Christus and Zara. Week 5 is a big one. Maybe that's because we do too much in week 5. And according to Burke, who didn't participate in discussions, this time I want to go to the end and hopefully be more active. Fantastic. Thank you, Burku. Okay, and here's Susan Mulder, and this ends with a question for the TAs, although I do realize we have a phone call, but we're going to have to wait for a second on that. Susan writes, hey, I'm coming late to the introduction. My name is Susan, whichever. I'm a classically trained visual artist living in limbo, which can only be described as Western Michigan. Susan said that, I didn't. I work primarily in paint, but have done sculpture, installation, performance, encaustic work. I've exhibited nationally and so forth. And I am in the best role of my life to date. Grandma. Rock on, grandma, painter, Western Mish. I have always loved words and writing. Often my paintings and other works incorporated written word or some play on words, etc. Over the scope and arc of doing the visual art thing, I became burned out with the system and the culture, meaning the art, I guess the art system, and took a self-imposed sabbatical that I can't seem to want to end. I still work in my studio. One of my biggest fears about doing this course is that by studying writing, it will rob the joy of her art. She says, I'm not interested in writing, not as an academic necessity, but for the joy of it. And her worry is that studying it, like doing ModPo, will rob the joy in it, the same way unpacking the myth and mystery of art spoiled my capacity to fully enjoy it with the innocent abandon that led me to study art at the start. So far, that's not the case with ModPo. So my question to the TAs to start is, how do you respond to Susan? We're going to start with Joe. How do you respond to Susan? The fear that here, by doing what we're doing, by doing a close reading, for instance, by doing close analysis, we will take the joy and innocence out of the poetry or our love of poetry. Joe, you want to start?
Yeah, it's a great question. My suggestion is to have faith that there will never be a final reading of any poem. And a testament to that fact is that we've been going over some of the same poems for every year in ModPo, and they're
not
always
bored.
Not bored at all. I've never been bored by any of the poems in the syllabus. Well, maybe some of the conceptual pieces, but
well, we'll deal with. I want to know later, 6 weeks from now, which ones bore you.
But think of close reading as a way to continuously refresh the poem and renew it and make it new again for you.
Great.
Shout out to Pound.
Make it new. Shout out to Pound and friends. Molly, do you want to take a crack at that? Because I know that this whole issue is important to you. I've known you for a long time, and I know that you love the joy of reading the poems, and you don't want that to get lost. Your thoughts on that, Molly?
Yeah, I think it's all on how you approach it. I do really love the aesthetic of just receiving the poem, of reading it and feeling it and listening to it and hearing how it sounds. But I think for me, once we dig into the act of making meaning communally, that's where the joy really comes in, where we can take different perspectives and use that prism to look at the poem in some different ways. So we kind of zoom in and then we can zoom back out again and reread it and re-feel it and rehear it and see if it's any different.
That's such a smart idea, and I want to turn to Erica for one last response to Susan Mulder. Erica, one of the things that Molly just said is that we shift our attention perhaps from the content of the poem, right? And maybe this is implicit in Joe's comment that we can read the poems again and again, and what we finally get joy out of is the way we convene around it and how much joy we get from that. So Erica, I know this is an interest to you. There's something about the collectivity of interpretation that becomes an aesthetic joy in itself. Would you say that? And if so, would you explain?
I would definitely say that. And I would add to that something that comes from probably Frank O'Hara, that a poem is like a conversation. So it's, for me, it's less about getting one right meaning than enjoying the language in the company of others and continuing to push at the language and think about what it's doing, how it's doing it, what it sounds like.
Nice. Well, there are a couple more responses here that I'll just read, and then we'll take the person on the phone. Alana Shaw in Twitter says, "No fear, Limbo and Mish, am I? ModPo opens a wide world of the mind for artists via close reading, joy and perspective." Sanjeev, close reading, might we take innocence and joy out of poetry? I'll provide the analogy, this, and then he gives us a link to a YouTube clip, which I'm not going to open, but if you're on Twitter, you can check that out. And Robin Cohn from the West Palm Beach area says, ModPo is a creative spark splinter, which kind of implies a response, which is that the ModPo can actually restore and improve joy. So that's great. And just a couple of great people here. Nicole Braun has joined us from northern Michigan. Julie Nasland from the rainy high desert of Oregon. Layla Hughes says hi. It's all, and Freya Creech, who I believe is a first-year ModPoer, musician, a violinist, and has a long response to that whole question that Susan raised. So that's great, and those are in the forums. Anna, who do we have on the phone?
So on the phone we have Kate Hersland, who's calling with Dan Bergman. Oh, wow. Yay!
Wait. Kate and Sam?
Kate and Dan.
Dan
Dan
Bergman?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, bring them on up. Hi, Kate and Dan.
Hi.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, yes, we can.
Wow. Just to give some context for new ModPoers, Dan has been a ModPoer since 2012, since the start. And Kate, who's a Writers House affiliate, a former Penn student, has been working with Dan for the last couple of years, including when Dan was a student in the face-to-face version of this class. So it's just great to have you both back. Do you, either you or Kate or both of you, have a question or a comment?
Yeah, well, Dan, first of all, wanted to say how happy he is to see you all, and he misses you, Al and Lily, so much. And he also had a comment on the question about reading the poems and the difficulty of understanding them, and he said, close reading is really a close effort to me. It is really the most meaningful way of getting close to someone.
Wow, I love the way, Dan, you morphed the word close. You know, in all the years we've been talking about close reading, I don't think anybody's quite done that. I'm going to invite Gabe just to respond to what Dan just said.
I think it's true
Do you feel close to me when we do close readings? Sorry, I just
think so.
messed up the sentiment.
No,
of
what
that.
I was gonna say is, I was thinking in response to that question from Susan that like, there's such a fault for bad teachers in response to this stuff. I know so many people who literary analysis has been spoiled for them because of a bad teacher, because of a bad way of teaching it. And I hope to think, and I think we do really do it. I think we teach in a more generous way. And through that kind of more generous or open way of teaching it, I think that's how we get close in the way that Dan says.
Yeah. No, I think that's totally true. Joe, I feel like you have something to say about this.
No,
I'm
I don't.
feeling, okay,
No,
all right, good.
No, but I like the idea of close reading as an intimate.
As a closeness, yeah. That's great. Dan, I'm going to read you the list of main syllabus poems from week 2, and I would like you just to pick one that you remember very powerfully. So there's William Carlos Williams' Smell. That's the bony nose. Oh, bony nose, stop being such a rude person or thing. Danse Russe, of course, Williams dancing alone in his suburban house. Ginsberg's Whitmanian Supermarket in California. 3 knockout poems by Laureen Niedecker. Grandfather Advised Me, which is also called Poet's Work. You Are My Friend, and Foreclosure, which is really a radical poem. Sid Corman's It Isn't for Want, and Ray Armantrad's very difficult, The Way. Dan, you want to just pick one of those poems as a favorite, and maybe if you want, tell us what's so good about it?
Dan says it isn't for want.
He
And
likes
he's typing
Corman.
with me now, so bear with us. He says, I really love that idea that it is not the thing to have something you must say. It is the thing to have someone you must say it with.
Yeah, that's right. That's so good, Dan. So if you can say stuff all you want, but if you don't say it to someone, it's the same. It's the equivalent of not saying. So it's such a reception-friendly poem, and for someone who's clearly isolated, it's a kind of remarkable thing.
Precisely. It moves me to my core to hear Sid so lovingly put it this way.
You've said the word love about 3 times, Dan. So I'm just gonna we'll have you guys hang up, and then we're gonna listen to Sid. So tune into the broadcast and hear Sid again. But you said the word love twice and then lovingly, and it makes me think how much we love you, both of you, Dan and Kate. And I sense to my peripheral right that Gabe is doing a kind of rock-on thing. We feel that.
I, Kate, love you both very much and love you all, and it's
Okay.
wonderful to be talking to you.
That's Kate saying that.
Yes.
We miss you
Although I know
both.
Dan feels
Miss
the
you
same way.
both so much. Come back to Writer's House sometime. All right, bye-bye, guys. We're going to listen to Sid now.
Good. Take care. Love you.
Bye. Love you too. 215-573-9752. That was great. Here's Sid. Chris Martin, you ready?
All right. It isn't for want of something to say, something to tell you, something you should know, but to detain you, keep you from going, feeling myself here as long as you are, as long as you are.
Oh, my God, that slays me.
All right.
Oh, he's doing it again.
It isn't. Why not? Something to tell you, something you should know, but to detain you, keep you from going, feeling myself here as long as you are, as long as you are.
I'm going to ask Davey and Amaris just to say a word or two, because we've talked about this poem so much. about this, and then I'll give the floor to Joe, who, of course, had been befriended by and befriended Sid Corman himself, and might have a recollection or something. Davey first, what do you Dan's right, of course, about that, and how powerful is that? How important is it for a poem to find a closeness to another and other?
I mean, it's tremendously important, and I think that what's striking me on this listen is the idea of feeling myself here, that you might be in a space and continue to be present with the poem by yourself, but that what the affordances in Corman's poem, what the affordances of ModPo, is to be able to feel yourself there, to be able to be aware of the fact that you're in the room, that you're in the poem because of the presence of another, and that the awareness of that connectivity, even more than the connectivity itself, is what the poem affords.
I like, of course, you're nothing if not a person who connects the meta-poetic to the meta-pedagogical, right? And I would say meta-communitarian more largely. That's your thing, right? So you're interested in how citizens can be formed out of the poem, even though Sid is something of an exile when he's writing that poem. So I really like that concept that what we do here is create the same kind of proximity, intimacy, constructing a you or a you are, which is to say being. That's really, really great. And I think that's why the poem has become so anthemic, ModPo. Amaris, do you have a thought to add to this? We've talked about this poem for 6 years plus. So maybe you have nothing to add.
No, I do actually. This is definitely my favorite poem of the course.
Wow.
And I think it's because it embodies so much exactly what Dan was just saying. In the poem itself, it said, Sid Corman has nothing specific to tell you. And all the poems in ModPo are the same way. They have no specific message to communicate. It's more about creating that space for all of us to commune over the imaginative and interpretive possibilities of the poem. So kind of what like Davey and Molly were saying before, I really feel like it's about creating a space to see what resonates with you. And the reason ModPo doesn't feel limiting is that we're encouraged to listen and hear everyone's equally legitimate responses to a poem. We're not limited to
which is
any
why
one
we can keep
teacher's
doing it.
interpretation.
Yeah, that's
Right.
really,
Yeah.
Amaris, you're great. I was very moved by what you said. Joe, the thing that I know that you and I have in common in our love for poetry is that, unlike the conversations we have, and no harm meant to readers of sort of serial readers of nonfiction, let's say nonfiction histories. Like I have a friend who's reading biographies of the presidents from start to finish, and that's in a way its own conceptual project. But I can't. I'm not interested in that. I go back to the same poems again and again and again. And that really is almost un-American. I said that because of the other project of reading all the presidents. I'm not sure what I would gain slogging through all those awful 19th century presidents, like James Buchanan. Well, actually, we could learn something from that, but what not to do, I suppose. But it's almost un-American. It's certainly asocial. It certainly like leaves you on the outside to be a person who goes back to the same poem again and again and again. And how do you combat that feeling? How do you feel like you're a regular person even though you keep reading the same poems again and again?
Well, reading the same poems and the same poets over and over again leaves me feeling connected. It puts me in the world again. I'm in my own head all the time, so it gives me an opportunity to reconnect with another voice, a strong voice that can kind of center and ground me and push me to write my own work.
Yeah, that's a great answer. By the way, yesterday was Joe Massey's birthday. You knew I was going to bring this up. And it was a big one, I think.
39.
39, so it's heading toward the big one
Heading
anyway.
toward,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but, would it be ModPo if we didn't sing Happy Birthday? Oh, no. Amaris, Molly, and Erica, you have to unmute. Anna at the phone, you have to, okay. Eric's here. He didn't expect to have to do this. Oh, we're giving him the portable mic. Can you sing, Eric?
Oh, my God.
Oh, okay. So Sanjeev, Stephanie, Cindy, Joy from LA, Alana, famished writer, whoever you are, please get a new handle. Stephanie, Shannon in Texas, another Stephanie from Mansfield, PA. We're all singing happy birthday to a great poet and a dear friend, Joe Massey. I'm sorry, Joe. I really apologize. So on 3, happy birthday. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Louder. Happy birthday to. Get a close-up of Joe. Happy birthday, dear Joe. Happy birthday to you. Joe Massey, everybody. Happy birthday, Joe.
Thank you.
Joe had not a cake, but a mac and cheese for his birthday last night. It was so fantastic. All right, we have someone on the phone. I just wanted to say, quote for Davey and others. Something said, oh yeah, Stephanie DiCamilla is a teacher, and Stephanie writes, as a pre-service high school English teacher, I am counting on ModPo to help me be a better teacher. Thank you for being here for me. So this is cool. Thank you, Stephanie. I hope your students are participating too. All right, who do we have on the phone, Anna?
So we have a old friend. This is Chris Lynch calling from Georgia. And he wants to weigh in on the sort of rereading the poem, coming back to a poem,
Great.
and that communal aspect of reading.
Great. Hi, Chris.
Hello? Hello?
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Very good.
Good, good. So what we're going to do, Chris?
My second year.
Yeah, I know. What we're going to do is we're going to take your question or comment, and then we'll ask you to listen to it as we respond, so that others can call in. Does that sound okay?
Awesome.
Great. Okay.
So, I was thinking about, like, when you're talking about the benefits or whatever of close reading a poem together.
Yes.
Like, I remember that before I took ModPo last year, it would be hard. You know, I had a really hard time trying to understand, you know, the meaning of a poem and how the form and content relate to each other, and how the form directs the meaning of the poem, and so on and so forth. But then when I watched the videos of the close readings, I would be able to you know, better be able to understand the meaning of the poem, or how the form was used to, in conjunction with the content, to create. I mean, basically to understand the poems, you know, that we read.
Yeah.
And
Chris, can I ask you a question?
Huh?
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
Okay. Can you say specifically, either from memory from last year or so far this year, what is it about the videos? What is it about the way we do our interpretation that doesn't push you away or alienate you, but actually invites you to understand? Is there something specific that you can think of that does that for you? Because that would be helpful to know.
Well, because each person contributes, you know, contributes one sort of aspect or their view, and together, like, if they were by themselves, they might not be able to realize, oh yeah, that's right, that's a good point. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I were to read the poem by myself, I'm like, I have no clue. But then if I'm sitting there reading with other people, I can ask them, well, what do you think about this?
Yes.
And they say, well, you know, this might mean this. So, you know, and working on a poem together,
yes.
You know, reading a poem together with a group of people, with everybody's input, you can work together to come to an understanding.
Great.
Whereas if you're by yourself, it's like,
yeah.
Oh, gee, I'm not sure, man.
No,
so
I totally get it.
To speak with about it.
Chris,
you know,
Chris, can I interrupt? You've given us a really important issue that I want to turn to the TAs for, to respond. So would you listen to the response off the air, and then we can get
absolutely. But what I'm saying is also, and then coming back to a poem over and over again,
yes,
you know, has like the same result, because you read it the second time, well, you figured something out that you didn't recognize the first time you read it.
Yes.
Then the third time, and so on. Like coming back to the poem over and over. So it's not redundant, or it's not, because you're always learning something new.
Yes, I totally agree.
Thing about both aspects.
I'm a baseball fan, and I will watch games again and again, and they really all are kind of the same after a while, No, seriously,
Right.
but it's endlessly interesting to me because the more you stare at that game, the more you realize there's like 1,000 things going on that you didn't understand. It's very much like a poem. Anyway, Chris, I'm so glad you're with us again. I appreciate the work you do in the discussion forums. So we're going to ask you to hang up, and then we'll get another call, and we'll get some responses, and you can hear them and respond in the forum. So thank you, Chris.
Awesome.
Good luck
Okay.
down there. Take care.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. How about Gabe and then Erica? What Chris is focusing on is the feeling of being alone or of isolation, which is a traditional notion of literature. You read it in a library or read it by yourself. And then Chris is discovering something that is sort of seemingly culturally counterintuitive, which is that it's better done with other people together, is the word he used. So did I just ask you to do this? Okay. So Gabe and then Erica, thoughts on that?
Yeah, what I was thinking about when you were talking, Chris, I remember some of Chris's struggles or like other phone calls about having difficulty with the readings last year. And it's good to feel that you're improving or that you can now come at it a second time. I almost feel like I very much agree with his statement that the ModPo videos is like a lot of people who sort of have an idea of what they think about the poem, and then it changes in conversation, or it evolves in conversation is maybe a better way to say it. Yes. And I kind of think of the like coming to reread it as like you're making like a little panel between like you now, you a year ago, you 2 years ago, etc. And just like different times that you've read the poem. So it's not, your past experience with it is not irrelevant. It's actually very relevant to how you're reading it now, but that's slightly different. And so I think that it's like really good to not be intimidated by not feeling like you understand in private, because first of all, this is a very public forum, so you've got many opportunities. But second of all, it's just there's an idealization of being alone and getting it, but there's no real reason to honor that skill.
Probably, and there are people in this room who know more about the history of reading than I do, but it really got idealized as part of the ideology of individualism in the 17th and 18th century, right? And there's been a lot of good scholarship on this. One could argue that the first kind of private writing was, Augustine's Confessions, where the writing is about an individual growth. It's meant to be a model for you, but it's really meant for you. So there's some people who would argue that. But it's relatively recent, given that writing would have started, possibly as early as 8,000 years ago, and most of the years of writing have been writing as accounting, writing as denotation, writing as demonstration, writing as public pronouncement, right? So I love the way the most intensely private poet I know, the late John Ashbery, has a poem called The One Thing That Can Save America, where it's a poem about his being gay, although he never was quite, at that point anyway, quite sure how he felt about being publicly a gay poet. But in that poem, he shouts the fact of his difference across middle America from a steeple, from a church steeple. So that's a nice inversion that I really like. Erica, do you want to comment on this whole question of reading as private and reading as together in response to Chris?
I would just add that I think about reading as like a fundamental part of our process of literacy learning.
Yeah.
And by definition, literacy is a social practice. So for me, there are two things that I think a lot about that are really important that have to do with this idea of reading in community. One of them is, I think it's really valuable to not understand things and to be okay with that.
What?
And
you're at a university and I'm being funny. What? You're at a university or a college and you're advocating not understanding, they should throw you out.
Yeah, I had a
And you're getting
student
paid for
in
this.
my class. One of my students yesterday was asking me to explain something, and I was just kind of like, I have no idea. Let's figure this out together.
It takes a certain teacher, Erica Kaufman, it takes a certain teacher, and I think a great teacher, to get to the point where you say, I don't know, what do you think? It's not just a pedagogical strategy, it's a totally great pedagogical strategy. But I wish more people giving directions in New York would do that.
What do you think?
I don't know. What you tourist from Iowa? What? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Just take a subway. You'll end up there. Sorry, Erica, I trivialized that. I apologize.
I know it's okay. The only other thing is that I think questions are really good. So I think that instead of thinking of reading in isolation, you should think about genuinely like sitting with a bunch of people and asking questions and puzzling through how strange language is. And how the way language is working always changes.
Yeah. This is great. People in the Twitter feed and on the Facebook page and in the forums are just freaking out over this whole conversation. I mean, everybody really responds to this because basically, I mean, Chris from Georgia, he's from Georgia, called last year and said, I don't know what to do with this stuff. And clearly what we're hearing now is that he has a hunger for that kind of citizenship that starts with not understanding. I wish citizenship was universally defined in that way. Who's on the phone?
So what Erica just said about sitting in a room with a bunch of people puzzling over this is a fabulous pivot transition to our next caller, who is a 6-time ModPoer. I think we got to start giving out T-shirts or something to like the 6-time folks. It's John Knight.
John Knight from Washington. John Knight. Oh my gosh. John. Hello, John.
Uh-oh. We might have lost John.
Did we lose him? He's persistent. He'll call back. John, are you there?
Hello?
Hi, John.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. Who is this?
This is Al.
Oh, I see. What I'm hearing on the phone, on the computer is different than you talking.
Yeah, that's why there's a 20-second delay, and you can blame that either on Chris and Zach, or you can blame it on the internet.
I see.
Either one. So I suggest that you look away from the image while we're talking.
Right.
How are you, pal?
I'm fine.
Good. Are you still hanging around with those Washington people?
Yes,
Anthony Kolosny and
that's
Matt
what I wanted
Ray?
to say.
Mm-hmm.
For I guess it's 6 years now, we've been meeting, and we use the poems and poems as a base of discussion keeps us authentic. And just operating at that level of communication, not the badinage of life, it's really just using poetry as a way of tempering meeting is very valuable. It's worked for us for years now.
Yeah.
And we all look forward to meeting on Saturday mornings and talking about, and we talk almost exclusively about poetry.
Yeah, that's really great. And we wanted, this is the occasion to insert for all Washington, D.C. area people. This is the famous bookstore called Politics and Prose. Yep. And where is it exactly, John? Do you know the address?
Right. Well, when people ask me where I live, I say I live near Politics and Prose, and if they're the right kind of people, they already know. But it's on Connecticut Avenue.
Okay.
Just below Chevy Chase Circle.
That's really great. Not only have you done a service to everybody in the D.C. area, and by the way, it's worth driving in from Virginia and Maryland, even Delaware, very much so, to join this group. It's a group of very diverse people, and they're really devoted to this. But you've also, I think, done a service which is to underscore the importance of getting a meetup together. It's one thing to commune with us through the videos and then sometimes through the webcasts, but it's quite another thing. And so Eric is here. Maybe we can get Eric the portable mic, Eric has convened meetups throughout those 6 years too, and maybe you can briefly suggest one of the virtues of doing that. But while Eric's thinking about what he wants to say about that, I have a question for you, John Knight. Are you okay with a question from left field?
Right.
Okay.
I am.
So you've been interested from the start in the overlap or the connections between Quakerism or the Quaker mode of finding out truth and what we do in ModPo. I wonder if you would take a minute to remember what you said about that 6 years ago, or come up with a new idea about that, either one.
Well, I guess Joe Massey is, for me, quite a hero in the sense that my sense of his poems are that he talks a lot about the experience, just reality, getting in touch with reality. And I think that that's what happens. What happens when you go to Quaker meeting and you sit silently for an hour, you open yourself up to this kind of poetic experience. And I find that I'm finding that I discover this experience more and more places, and particularly ModPo is an example where it's kind of a shared experience. We bring that level of experience into the conversation space, and as that we can do that for more people. That's wonderful.
Thank you, John. And Joe?
I do have a complaint, though.
Okay, you always have a complaint.
I wrote a paper for this thing called Rubber Ducky, but when I put it on the assignment thing, it just took away all my format, and it's my paper without formatting is unreadable.
Yeah. Well, you join the long line of ModPo affiliated people who are complaining to Coursera about that aspect of what is otherwise a pretty robust site. They're really against formatting and self-formatting, and the reason they give is that they really want the site to be useful on a smartphone. We are hammering away at them to enable us to do single spacing, which poetry kind of requires. So we're with you, John.
Okay.
We're on your side. Thank you for calling, John.
Okay.
It's great to talk to you. But I have another question for you.
Yes.
Do you own a copy of Joe Massey's book, To Keep Time?
No.
Okay. I have a copy of that book. And in 20 seconds, you'll see it on the screen. Okay. I am going to ask you to give Anna your address, though I have a feeling we already have it, to give Anna your address and mail you a copy as a gift from Joe and us to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, and thanks for calling.
Okay.
Take care. Oh, give Anna your, don't hang up, give Anna your address. She'll be on in a second.
Okay.
Eric,
Thanks.
can you, thank you, John. Take care.
You're doing a great service.
Thank you. Eric, would you give us maybe three, like list style, 3 advantages of a meetup? What's so great about it?
So one thing is...
Is he on, Chris?
So you get to meet your neighbors. When I came here, I'd only been living in Philadelphia for about 2 years. I don't even think, well, maybe I just started doing some work here at Penn. I got to meet a fabulous group of people who are involved in all kinds of things that I'm interested in but really had no idea about. And friendships developed, and I learned more about my city, and I learned more about life. Secondly, people came to the meetups, some of whom had been reading poetry all their life, some of whom were really new to reading poetry, and maybe at the beginning they lacked as much confidence to share their ideas and opinions. But a good meetup is supportive, and certainly here in Philadelphia at the Writers' House, we've had some very supportive meetups. And one of the beautiful things is watching someone grow in self-confidence and realizing that all readers are needing to be brave, no matter how long you've been doing it when you share. So watching people flower like that was really a wonderful thing.
Got a third one?
The third one is that I believe on the 25th, we're having a 6:30 webcast. And after that webcast here in Philadelphia, we'll have a meetup.
Oh, great.
Here at Kelly Writers' House. So those of you who'd like to come and join us for a webcast. This is after you get back from London.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a meetup here. We'll get some food for you guys.
That's
and
great.
we'll pick a poem that you guys want to read.
Thank you, Eric, for those comments, and also for being so generous in hosting the meetups, and also for suggesting a plug, which is that I urge everybody, if you're in the Philadelphia area, to come and be with us during our webcasts, our live webcasts. Okay, so we have a caller on the phone, and let's see where we're going to go next. Anna, who is on the phone?
It's Mandana Shaffa.
Mandana.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, Mandana.
Hello, Al. How are you?
I'm fine. You're calling in. Usually you say, "Oh, I'm too shy to call."
Well, you beat that out of me after 6 years.
Well,
What can I say?
partly it's because Joe is here. I know that.
Well, actually, that's a good reason for me to call in. If it's okay, I'm swerving to the left a little bit. I'm thinking about 3 different poems that we studied this week, both in ModPo Plus and in regular ModPo. Supermarket in California.
Yep.
It Isn't for Want.
Yep.
And Wilderness from Plus. So you could probably
And
name
what
many
was
more.
the third one?
Wilderness. The
Niedeker.
Niedeker from Plus. And you could probably pick more of that. But in those 3, there's a predominant use of the you form.
Yes. Right.
And I'm really working through the idea of using the you to frame the I. And I wonder if any of you have any feelings about that. We certainly didn't see as much of that pronoun usage in the first week. And certainly when you go further and further, and I'm thinking of Stein and certainly my beloved Ashbery, pronouns go a little wild.
Yes.
But what do you all think about the you?
That's a great question. So, Mandana, what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way around the horn, and everybody's going to get to respond. But will you hang up and listen to the response through
Happy
the
to.
webcast? Okay. All right, great.
Bye-bye.
So, Mandana says, okay, why the poems are turning toward you, which can actually be a form of I, like if it's in Hemingway's hands. You like to open cans. You do open cans. You go fishing. Then you scream because you are angry. That's not really about another person. That's about Hemingway. But what she's suggesting is that when Sid talks about you, Sid is talking about someone else. And that's a move from Dickinson and Whitman, who are more I. They're more I poets, by a long shot, actually. And then when we get to Stein or Ashbery, we get to poets who are really working on torquing and morphing pronouns. So everyone, and this is going to mean you have to be very quick, everybody at the table and in the Hangouts, say something about pronouns, especially for those who are watching the webcast who are new to ModPo and are not sure exactly why Mandana is concerned about it. So, okay. So, Joe, first, something about pronouns.
I love pronouns, especially I and you, and their endless interchangeability. I mean, from like Celan, the you in Celan, which is so wide.
Paul Celan, yeah.
And then the you in Sid, which is obviously the reader or a beloved.
Yeah.
And then a you that's very specific. But I always read the you as very, it's a wide open space.
It's also kind of theoretically complicated because if you're alone in a room writing a poem about a you, it could be all kinds of things. It can be a plural you. The great thing about the English second person is that it's the same for singular and plural.
Yeah.
So that's really complicated. And I maligned Whitman, who uses you a lot. But anyway. Davey.
Something that I love about the second person in particular is the doubleness of Niedeker, for example, in Wilderness, saying, "You are my other country," and in being the reader, feeling like you get to take that subject position or be involved in that space. We were thinking about the intimacy of close reading. I'm thinking about that not only as a way of getting close to the text, but as a way through the you of getting very close to the poet.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. Gabe, your thoughts on pronouns at this point in the course?
Yeah, I kind of think of pronouns a lot like wrenches. They like move verbs around, and they do some sort of grammatical or connective work. So it's hard in poetry, and especially the poetry we're going to meet soon, to ascribe character to them, like a person, a direct target, or something like that. Instead, I like to think of them as sort of like, like a wrench.
Yeah. Wow. Erica, your thoughts on pronouns at this point in response to Mandana?
I'm thinking about Ashbery and how important it was to Ashbery that pronouns be unstable and that I can be you, which can be she, which can be they, and how that's just something that's really important to how poetry can be unpredictable and why you can go back and read a poem over and over again.
Yes. Pronouns are extremely slippery even before you encounter John Ashbery. All human beings who use pronouns realize how incredibly slippery and difficult and powerful they can be. Okay, that's really cool. Thank you so much. Molly, your thoughts on pronouns?
Yeah, I think that the you in these types of poems can either make the poem feel really lonely, like the poet is kind of shouting into the void, or can make it feel really, really cozy, like we're being invited in to coexist there. And so
Yeah.
it adds a depth of emotion once it takes it outside of I that is really
Yeah.
little.
Niedecker was great at using you, often referring to the husband or the man in her life, as a way of actually creating greater loneliness. It's pretty amazing. The wilderness, which is what Mandana was mentioning, goes like this. You are the man. You are my other country, and I find it hard going. You are the prickly pear. You are the sudden violent storm, the torrent to raise the river, to float the wounded doe. So Niedecker goes from standing apart from the man, her man, the man, as the West, as the Wild West. And in the end, then, the Wild West stimulates a sudden storm, and there's a rising up of the water, and the wounded doe could be seen as the female figure of the poet destroyed by the storm. So you get her standing apart from the you, and then suddenly she's in the torrent. It's dead. So that's quite a disorienting way of doing you, but it also clearly identifies herself. I find it hard going is a great line. So Maurice, your thought on pronouns, and then we'll move on to someone else who's called.
Yeah, I think the poems in this course are increasingly about the idea of identity being destabilized or relative and in sort of constant spontaneous creation in relation to who you're interacting with. So the poems move increasingly towards reader as creative collaborator, and kind of Niedecker being able to stand apart and realizing that her relationship or interaction with, in the beginning, what is an other is actually a process of mutual spontaneous creation.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it puts me in mind of a question that I don't think I'll just ask it, and then we'll pick it up again in subsequent weeks, which is, why do ModPo people, especially the TAs and so forth, always valorize or praise or commend the unstable identity that's made possible by the movement of pronouns? Why can't you people just stand behind stable identity? What's wrong with that? Why can't pronouns do some denotative work? You could mean, if I'm pointing to Anna, could mean Anna, but why does it have to be so fluid? And that's a very fundamental question. And so, I mean, I'll just say that John Ashbery was not always thought of as a political poet, but the destabilization of the identity through pronouns is one way in which he was very much aligned with progressive political thinking about gender and identity, for one thing. So, but we'll just let that hang out there. Before we take the call, we're going to just look at some tweet. You've been following tweets? David, do you want to quote a few tweets that are interesting?
Folks have been really excited about responding to the conversations that we're having in this room. Cindy McMillan says pronouns are shoes. I can wear my own, put them on someone else's feet, or share them by using you, the pronoun, which I find
Cindy's getting Rookie of the Year award.
which I find really lovely.
Cindy's so great. Where have you been for 6 years, Cindy?
Kathy D says pronouns like I and you let readers enter the poems like doors or broken/open windows, which I super love. Folks are very excited about Gabe's pronoun wrenches moment, which I also found super delightful. Sanjeev says, the you and Sid, the reader are beloved, a wide open space, singular and plural you, the you that is also the Whitmanian I, which is like a Sid Corman poem in and of itself, which is great.
That's really good. I'm just looking at the subforum, pick out a thing or two, and then we'll go to the phone. Subforum is hopping. Chris Lench, who called earlier, singing happy birthday to you.
So many people are. Actually.
Yeah.
There's a ton of happy birthdays.
Julie from the high. Is there a high desert of Oregon? I'm going to trust you on that, Julie, since you're there. Pronouns as wrenches. Wow, Gabe. Yeah, lots of really good stuff going on. It's great. The people are doing more talking this week than last week. I think they were just sort of slackjaw last week. It's this new.
And there's like a lot of big questions, big like scope questions in the discussion forums that I don't think we have time for, but I hope that other people will like help each other deal with.
Yeah. Terry Reif, fantastic comment by Erica K. The teacher says, I have no idea what the answer is. We all must have a level of humility in order to learn. Yes. Totally, totally good. Okay, who do we have on the phone? This is going to be our last call.
It's just amazing. All my favorite people are calling today. It's Shannon Ratliff.
Shannon from
Yay,
Texas.
from Texas.
Let's put her up. Hello, Shannon.
Hi.
Shannon, I have a book for you.
How are you?
I'm fine. Do you want a book?
A book?
I'm going to give you a book.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't even like the second caller gets the book. You're just getting a book. I'm going to tell you about it, and then Zach is going to focus in on the cover. It's written, or it's edited by Nancy Landy, who is a ModPo person who was very active last year. She's out in the West somewhere. And she has edited a book. The subtitle is Native American Healthcare Encounters. And it's the main title is Words, Wounds, Chasms. And it's a collection of prose pieces about Native American healthcare encounters.
Wow.
And I've looked at it, and it's really very cool. And it'd be one ModPo person to another.
Wow, I am so lucky.
So we already have your address somewhere, but after the call, Anna will take your address and we'll mail it to you, okay?
Okay.
All right. Do you have a comment? Or, by the way, how is the family? Your husband is doing okay?
Oh, everybody's in their own space, so yeah.
Good. That's a great answer to the question. I shouldn't even have asked it. It's like so inappropriate, but
No, it's not inappropriate. It's just, when people are growing,
yes.
they're just in their own space,
Yeah.
and instead of saying something snarky, that's the nicest thing I can say right now.
Wow, Shannon, you are tough. This is great. Wow, you remember how 6 years ago or 5 years ago when you first joined us, you were less sure of yourself, I would say.
Yes, and I have a question,
Yeah.
but I had a comment because when we were talking earlier about collectivity and communalization of reading,
Yes.
I will never, ever stop reiterating that even though I am alone a lot, I am never really alone when I get to be in ModPo.
Aw.
And I never exaggerate when I share with people how ModPo saved me. And so I just can't speak highly enough for the people, all of you, and the community TAs, and the relationships I've built over time have encouraged me to be brave and work with the brain I was given and move forward. And in doing that, I've gained more confidence, and it's okay and I can be okay that I don't know things. It's okay.
That's amazing. There's a lot of thumbs up going on around here. Snaps for Shannon in Texas. Shannon, when you first called, so to live with the brain you've been given, or to work with it, we were 6 years ago or 5 years ago. We were talking about the brain within its groove.
Right.
And that was a turning point for you, because what can come from a brain that goes its own way is the flood that can be
Right.
very, very powerful if you just let it. And
Right.
that's the verb she uses, let.
Let it. That splinter, that flood, those strokes, whatever happens in your brain,
Yeah.
you can still have a full life. And it took me a time to get there, to realize that it's okay,
Yeah.
that the change is okay, you know. It doesn't make you stupid.
By no means.
So my question, and as you know, I still struggle with aphasia, so my words may not be correct, and I apologize to all the
That's all
smart
right.
people listening.
This is a course which spends a lot of time on Gertrude Stein. So whatever
Right.
you do, it won't be as hard as that.
So, you know, I've never been a fan of Walt Whitman. He kind of get on my nerve. But he's been in my face the last several weeks. Like everywhere I go, it's kind of disgusting. Like I see his poster and people are quoting him. People in a grocery, it's been ridiculous.
They're doing Whitman in the grocery store. I guess Ginsburg was right about that.
Yeah.
Is somebody eyeing the grocery boys?
And I know when that happens, universe is saying you're missing something, Shannon. And so I posted yesterday on a Facebook about it, and I was told to embrace my inner Walt by Sanjeev, and and Jamie brought up the word evolution, and I really started thinking about that. And my question is this: so if people consider Walt Whitman's writing evolution and poetry, how is that different from what Emily did? Because Emily Dickinson, to me, it was very, even though it's hard and it's formal, it's still very revolutionary. And what he says, she said, but she said it in a neater package. So I know I'm kind of going backwards from where we're talking about right now, but it's like I picture her poems like neat little boxes that I get to unwrap and discover, and his poems are like, I don't know, like when my son used to go outside and play in the mud and pee in the bushes. That's how I kind of...
That's Walt. Oh, totally. Yeah, that's great. Oh, Shannon, that's fantastic. That was great. Okay, so what we're going to do is, in the interest of time, I'm going to turn to Joe, because he and I have been talking about his inner Whitmanian, because he's really a Dickinsonian. So I'm going to have Joe respond, even though all of us could respond, and then we're going to wrap up. So Shannon, love you very much. I'm just so glad. This really, your call just is witness to how something, this weird online, because we've never met you or anything, this weird online community that can happen over 6 years can actually create not just the glory of the fate of rereading as people read the same poems and grow with them and change with them, but also just the relationships that we form through it by triangulating with the poems, like The Brain Within Its Groove, can produce a real friendship. So that's real. It's not unreal just because it's done through wires and telephone lines. All right, Shannon, have a great day. And what we're going to do is turn it over to the birthday boy for an answer.
Okay, thanks. Bye,
Okay,
guys.
thanks, Shannon. Take care. Okay. Joe, do you want to tackle this? So, the gist of what she's saying is, yes, she's a Dickinsonian because it's all there. We're looking at a Sid Corman. T posted a Sid Corman poem, and both of us just looked at it on the screen and we got it. Not that we got it, like, understand it, but it's all there. Walt is a little unruly, pee-peeing in the bushes. How do you want to respond to that? Because you've been thinking a lot about this.
Well, this last week was the first time I heard Whitman in ages. I really read Song of Myself, the whole thing, and found myself really loving it for the first time. And I could see the correlation with Dickinson in that they both kind of have this transcendent consciousness. It's almost a cosmic consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's the correlation. So I see what she's saying. It's a way in. Dickinson can be a way into Whitman, weirdly enough.
Yeah. I think that's totally right. And maybe in his final word, Eric will say something about Whitman or put in a plug for a project that he's undertaking, in which he's trying to do every one of those sections or cantos. Okay, it's time for final words. They're going to be brief, and then I'm going to offer a few closing remarks. So let's start with Gabe, and then we'll go to people in the Hangout.
Do we have any theme for our final words, or
Nope.
are we just going for it?
Nope. Anything you want to say about this part of the course or about what we heard today?
Okay. I first will start by saying, if you tried to access my office hours yesterday and didn't, that's my fault and not yours. I have been not putting them in the Gabe's office hours, but in the all office hours, which, as you all know from Coursera's technical issues, makes it more difficult for you. So don't worry. I got it.
It's not Coursera's technical issues.
That was mine.
That was mine. You put the forum instead of a subforum.
It's true. So that will be corrected
Take
from here on
responsibility.
now, Tuesday, 2 to 3.
Don't miss Gabe's office hours.
What I was going to say, I guess the thing I'm thinking about right now is just our last comment and just going off of Joe's thing. I was thinking about this Whitman into Dickinson thing, and on my GRE Literature and English subject test, which I just took, appeared a noiseless patient
You
spider.
took the graduate record exam?
I did. I didn't even know it stood for that, but I did take it.
Oh, my.
On it appeared a noiseless patient spider, which I remembered is a great, though very, I think, kind of simple in its range poem that reminds me a lot of Dickinson, I think, actually. That's a Walt Whitman poem from Leaves of Grass that we don't cover, I don't think, in either ModPo Plus or the syllabus, but it's a good one. And it has that kind of Dickinson vibe in the sense of here is an image of something. It is also like my soul, that kind of a vibe. And what I was going to say for the people who aren't too into Whitman, there's a lot else outside of Song of Myself, mainly because Leaves of Grass is a massive book, sort of unruly in its length. But there's a lot of great stuff in it, and I, as a teenager, went through all of it, and some of it I hated, and some of it I loved a lot. So, you go between a high range of content, but it's a lot of fun. So, as we keep moving, I hope you keep those two, our old courage teacher or whatever, in mind, and that's
Great.
all.
That's a really good plug or shout out. Amaris, a final thought today?
Yeah, I guess I'll just inform everyone that I'm switching office hours with Erica this week, so I'll be in her thread from 10 to 11 tomorrow morning.
That's great.
You can come find me there.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Amaris, and thanks for joining us. Molly, final thought? Oh, Molly had to go. Okay, so Erica Kaufman, she had to go. Okay. Davey, your final thought?
I just wanted to shout out the 3 Niederker poems we have in ModPo, as well as the additional ones we have this week in ModPo Plus that are doing such a lovely job. We understand them as Dickinsonian poems, but they do such an amazing job of thinking about space and the built environment and what's left of the built environment when you take all the buildings away. And I think that a really helpful pivot for me between Dickinson and Whitman, and every year I become more of a Dickinsonian and more frustrated with reading Whitman, despite the fact that I'm someone who thinks a lot about space. Niederker really helps me find a way in, and thinking about the way that she takes up space in a way that's kind of expansive and condensed at the same time is something that I find really lovely as I'm pivoting between Dickinson and Whitman in week 2.
Great. And those Niederker poems that we've got are just so good. Joe Massey, final thought, and just want to thank you again. I'm going to thank you at the end, too, for joining us, for coming all this way. It's great. And I'm just going to plug Joe. After this session and maybe a lunch break, he's going to go into the studio with Zach, and he's going to be recording some poems that are not already on his Pen Sound page.
Yeah, all new work. Yeah.
All new work. So within, I'd say, a week or two, Zach, we're going to London, so maybe 3 weeks. If you go to Joe Massey's Pen Sound page, and the best way to do that is Joseph Massey Pen Sound, you'll get there if you search those terms. And then look, there's just a remarkable range already. So I'm really glad you're doing that. Joe, final thoughts?
For my final thought, I think I'll read this Sid Corman poem, this short Sid Corman
beautiful
poem.
One.
That T, is that Reyes?
Yeah, T. de los Reyes from Philippines.
Yeah, thanks for posting this. It's an untitled poem from his book, Nothing Doing. Look, you are staring at words on a page. looking for your life, for the life of them. What does it mean if it doesn't mean life?
Fuck.
It's a good
We
one.
got to include that poem. Oh, gosh, Sid, that's like you were staring at words on a page, but it's not just that, right? Looking for your life. You're gonna look. You're finding something there. You want to say a word about that?
I'm just basking in it. It reminds me of It Isn't For One. It's another address to the reader, direct address.
Yeah. It's a direct address, but it's not trivial. It's the opposite of trivial. It's
That's right,
completely
that's right.
momentous. Like, hey, you thought you were just encountering these 6 lines, but you're looking for your life, and it's here. For the life of the words, for the life, and that idiom, for the life of me, I can't, for the life of the, so much at stake, so much at stake. My college creative writing teacher, who wasn't that great a teacher, great writer, but not a great teacher, said every day, when you write, make sure something is at stake. And Sid always has something at stake. Okay, so we're going to go to Eric. Do you have a mic? Eric, final thought?
So if Whitman or any poet is not working for you right now, that's fine. Put the book down. Go outside.
And roll around in the grass.
And live your life and experience your life. The poem will be there for you when you need it. I find Walt Whitman continues to be there for me at crucial moments, and other poets as well. But first off, there are some wonderful new poets. If you are not feeling inspired by what you're reading, go to the library and open a new book. It is one of the most glorious experiences to just wander. And it's just as glorious to wander in a park and shut the book.
That's
anyway,
great.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So you asked me about singing myself together. We are indeed doing 52 collaborative close readings with poets, scholars, and people who did the jobs that Whitman did, which was more than 20 different jobs in his lifetime.
That's really great.
Traveling across the United States, we are about halfway through. We will be ready for the bicentennial, Whitman's bicentennial, and what will come out at the end will be a free digital resource that people can use all over the world. You'll be able to access that from the Walt Whitman Archive, from the Library of Congress website, and also a book whose proceeds will help to support the Walt Whitman birthplace, which is worthy of your
Camden.
support.
Great.
In Huntington, Long Island.
Long Island, right. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much. Anna, final thought?
I just want to cheer again for the study groups and meetups. I mean, one of the sort of big things that happened today in this webcast is people really cheered for how wonderful it is to get together, whether in a digital space or in an actual space, and talk about poems together. And I'm so heartened and encouraged by ModPo as creating one of those spaces, and even more heartened and encouraged that people would go seek it out for themselves. It's just a beautiful, wonderful thing.
Great, thank you. Just a couple of shout-outs from me at the end, and then we're going to wrap up. I always like to remind us all that T, the aforementioned T from the Philippines, makes these ModPo cards, and this is one of my favorite cards. It just says this, which is very Cormanian. Which is this? What is this? Well, it's there. And hold that close up, Zach. It's going to be weird for a second. Right now, it's weird. So last year, some people sent me some, yes, sticky hands, thanks, but focus on the hands. Okay, so I have this, little riff that I do about the mug and about denotation, and I have not used these stickers yet, but today I'm going to do it, right, in honor of T and all and of Sid. So, okay, so cut 3 shout-outs. One is a new book by Kathy Davidson called The New Education. And the reason I'm happy about it is that it's got 2 pages about ModPo, in which it describes ModPo as a model for how the so-called, that MOOC moment of 2012, and most of the MOOCs came and went, and ModPo's still here. ModPo is not a typical MOOC, and she points that out, and I'm really grateful that she took the time to do it. Two shout-outs to ModPo people. So Tausif Mundrawala, who writes a very nice note. Actually, this is an email from him. He's talking about how he has access to the videos, and he's watching ModPo in his office after completing his work, meaning his 9-to-5 job. You have made me addicted to those close readings where every now and then I pause the video and form my opinion on the stanzas and those great lines penned by the great poets. By heart, I am a Dickinsonian, and from the aspect to enjoy this life to its fullest in an extrovert way, then I am a Whitmanian. Which is a nice cap to the conversation we've been having. I was anxiously awaiting this ModPo session to get started, and that's the reason that I emailed you. The last few months have been very harsh. He lost his mom, Tausif says, to the monster called cancer. But ModPo sessions consoled me and has helped me move ahead in life. I can't thank you enough for this wonderful gift called ModPo. Right now, I'm on the 3rd video of meta poems. It's a series in ModPo Plus of 3 poems, three videos, each on a meta poem. I recommend it. And I have seen the 3rd one, Sleeping with the Dictionary, but I find it refreshing, those vivid concoctions of words. Your sincere student, Tausif. So Tausif is in India, and we wish him well. We're sorry for the loss of your mom, and we're glad that we can hang out with you in this period of mourning. And finally, David Wallace, not the medievalist David Wallace who's on the faculty at Penn, but another one from Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I remember David Wallace calling in the first year. The reason I remember that is Oak Ridge is the site of all that atomic, post-World War atomic research. For all I know, it's still happening down there. And it's a very surreal kind of place. And he writes, I am a returnee from ModPo 2012. What happened in Oak Ridge is that people went there to be part of the atomic research and during the Cold War, and then the government took such good care, quote unquote, of them that set up housing and set up benefits that many of the people who went there in that period stayed there and have now aged and grown old there and are still in this kind of, I don't want to say post-atomic given the speech at the United Nations yesterday, but let's just say hopefully post-atomic world, post-Cold War world. I'm a returnee from ModPo 2012. It's worth the effort just to hear Al and his pals do the close readings. For the record, I am an 85-year-old left-brained product of the Appalachians and somewhat of a nerd, which probably handicaps me in this class. No. However, I have taken several courses covering a variety of subjects, and ModPo is the best, 2 exclamation points. It's possible that I take courses because my granddaughters are amazed that I want to learn anything at my age. David Wallace, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So David, you're never too old to learn. We have a lot of octogenarians and indeed nonagenarians. And I think once last year, a centenarian in ModPo. In fact, it's a course full of old people. There's a lot of old people, and the whole idea of the brain within its groove, that conversation we had with Shannon, was all about how absolutely not. It's never too late. You're never too old. So impress your granddaughters, David Wallace, our Oak Ridge boy, and that was like a pun on the band, right? Okay, sorry. We're going to say goodbye to Joe. Happy birthday, Joe.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you so much for making the trip, and looking forward to hearing the recordings that you produced this afternoon. Davey, as always, thank you. Gabe,
Thanks, Al.
thank you. You're fantastic. See you in the proper sub-forum. Amaris, thank you so much. Eric, thank you very much. Anna, as always, you're amazing. And Chris and Zach, so what they did today, so Apollo 11 is London, the London Webcast. You land, and you use all the flimsy little things you can get across the ocean or the vast sea of space between the Earth and its moon. You get there, you land. But prior to that, you have to do Apollo 10 and particularly Apollo 9, where they went up into Earth orbit, right, close to the mothership. Could have plugged in all the fancy stuff, but they brought all this weird temporary stuff. Zach, can you show that little tiny switcher thing that you're... So that little guy, we're taking that to London. And I don't know what the fuck it does. But what does it do? What is it? It's a video switcher. So we basically they're carrying lots of little things to London, because we're going to be doing a live one of these from London. Having gotten through customs, I'm not sure. They're going to say, hey, you suspicious looking guy with the video switcher, come on over here. So we're going to be in London soon, and Zach and Chris have really figured out how to do this. It is crazy. It's crazy enough to do it here. I don't know another MOOC that does weekly live webcasts, interactive webcasts, but we're going to London to do it. It's nuts. And apparently no one in London has any of this equipment, so we have to bring it. So anyway, we're looking forward to it. We're also looking forward to week 3, to reading the essays submitted during week 2. We're looking forward to the rise of modernism. We're looking forward to next Wednesday's webcast, and then after that, we're going to London. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you very much for all the wonderful comments, and have a great day.